Hello everyone, welcome back to another book haul and unhaul video, mainly haul this time around. My A to Z reading challenge is still progressing, but a lot slower than it was, so it might be a while to the next update. So I thought I'd, get one of these videos out there so I can still talk about books and just, check in. I've got a couple of books that I unhauls to talk about quickly. There's only 3. I do have more that I will ultimately unhaul from my A to Z reading challenge. There's probably a good 6 or 7 of those that I'm gonna unhaul eventually, but I'm saving those until I've finished the challenge completely to get rid of, just in case I want to reference them in videos and stuff. So holding on to a lot of those for now, but there will be quite a few getting unhauled in the future. But that leaves 3. 2 I put in the swap box little library thing that I talked about, and was the reason that I made the last haul and unhaul video. I put a couple in there just now. Didn't take anything out, nothing kind of caught my fancy unfortunately, but I just put 2 in there. 1 I put back in there, and 1 was just mine. And the only thing that was still there from when I put my stuff in before was The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Everything else that I put in there in the last video that you may or may not have seen, check it out if you haven't, that was gone. So that's nice to know that most of the stuff I put in there is out in circulation, so that's fun. But yeah, we'll talk about those 2 first. The first one is The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels by Janice Hallett. This is one that I took from that swap box library thing originally, and I was very, very excited to find it because I'd heard great things about it. And yeah, I read it, so I thought, well, let's put it back in there because I don't think I'd read it again. I did enjoy it quite a bit. I gave it 4 stars. I think the multimedia kind of angle lost me in the middle of it and I got a bit bored of it, but then the way the case wraps up and the way the storyline kind of goes, the twists and turns of that won me back over, and I ended up really, really liking it. For a while I thought, oh, this is probably going to be a 3-star, but the ending definitely bumped it up to a 4 because I liked how it all wrapped up. It's not one that I think I'd ever revisit, so I thought I'd just put it back into that library swap box thing, and someone else can enjoy it. The other thing I put in there just now was The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, which I also talked about hauling in the last video. That's gone. I read that one. I did not enjoy The Invisible Man. I think it was a really great, genius concept with the most tedious execution. Nothing happened in that book. Thank God it was only 144 pages. If it was any longer than that, I think I would have just DNF'd it and not even bothered finishing. But yeah, I just, I bearing in mind it is really old. It's 130 something years old I think at this point, or close to that. The writing at the start was sort of a bit obtuse, and I was I'm not sure I'm kind of getting your point here, but it was just, the plot was as invisible as the man. There's just nothing to it. There's a whole chapter where he's just stumbling about this department store. I'm nothing's happening. You didn't need this. There's a bit of action and momentum nearer the end, and I thought I was really, really excited because I loved the first chapter. I thought the first chapter was one of the best first chapters I've ever read. I was like, this is so cool, so interesting, so atmospheric, and then it just nosedived. So I was gutted because I thought, oh wow, if this keeps up, this is going to be something really special, and it wasn't. So I'm sad about that, especially because I was really keen to read some H.G. Wells and get more into him. I do still have The Island of Dr. Moreau that I will check out at some point, and I would like to read The Time Machine, but if I don't like The Island of Dr. Moreau, I think that's going to be it for me in H.G. Wells, because this was, very boring, very tedious. I think the descriptions of how he went invisible and what parts of him went invisible was really interesting, and I liked the kind of character arc he had, but everything else was just so dull and boring. And there's just multiple chapters where it's just him sat kind of explaining his backstory to this guy, and I'm I just don't care. And given that it was written quite some time ago, there were some very, very outdated views and descriptions in that one, which I did not enjoy. So yeah, I very happily binned The Invisible Man, and maybe someone else will get more out of it than I did, but not for me. And I was really, really sad about that because the first chapter was so good, but yeah, didn't enjoy that book, so happy to get rid of that. And then the third and final book I unhauled was The Housekeepers by Alex Hay. My friend Beth wanted to read this when I was reading it before. We met up in Cardiff. I was reading it. She was interested in it. So once I finished it, I could give it to her, which I did. I was in Cardiff this weekend just gone as I'm recording this. So I got a bunch of books there, or basically all of these books that I'm going to talk about for the most part. And I could also give that book to her to check out, because it was one that just instantly struck me when I first saw the cover. And then when I read what it was about, I saw it was like a heist story where, this housekeeper who had just been sacked from her job organises a heist with a bunch of other former employees to kind of rob the place blind and get revenge, and things kind of escalate and go from there. So it's like a heist novel, and I thought, oh, what a really interesting kind of idea and a really interesting kind of group of heisters trying to pull that off. So yeah, I read that. It's Alex Hayes' debut novel as well. And I liked it. I think I gave it 3 stars, maybe 3.5. I think Alex Hay is an author who, the more he writes, the more I like his stuff. I think his ideas appeal to me instantly. He does have another book that's on my TBR. His second book came out, I think, last year, maybe early this year, called The Queen of Fives, which I do intend to read. Because I could tell from the housekeepers, he was giving me plot-wise and character-wise exactly what I wanted, but I think some of the execution wasn't quite there. Because there was kind of another twist of things that were going on in that house that I was like, this just doesn't need to happen, and it felt very underbaked, and I think it just wasn't explored well enough to warrant its inclusion. And there were just a few moments during the heist I was like, I'm not really sure I'm following what's going on here, but I did like the characters, and the character stuff was good. So fundamentally I did really enjoy it, but I got the sense from that was, he's got some great ideas and plot lines and character ideas. I think, as he writes more books and, therefore becomes a better and better writer, he's gonna write something that's 5 stars exactly for me. So I'm hoping the more books he releases, the more I'll like them. So I will check out his next one and see how I feel about that. The copy that I just happened to buy, there's a sort of a printing error with it, and I think some of the pages of the paper was a bit too long and got crushed down a bit, so the printing on it was a bit all over the place. Not unreadable or anything, but there clearly was a manufacturing error with the book that I bought. So I always intended on getting another copy of it. So, I was happy to kind of just lend that to my friend, and I probably will get another copy of it later on down the line, especially if I do continue to read Alex Hay and will want copies of all his books. So, yeah, that was definitely a good time. I think I would recommend it if you're just into heist novels. I think that was a good example of one. I'm hoping Alex Hay is going to really deliver the goods for me in future, and I think The Housekeepers showed me that was possible from him. Okay, so those were the 3 books that I've unhauled recently, and we've got a lot to talk about for my ones that I've hauled, so we'll just try and power through these. There's 23, 24 books to quickly talk about. I've sorted them into sort of categories, and we'll whiz through them. We'll get these 2 out of the way, because since I last did a haul video, I did get these, but I have also just since talked about them on the channel, because these were 2 that I got from my A to Z reading challenge. So we have Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, and Life of Pi by Jan Martel. So these are 2 that were very kindly bought to me from a viewer for my Amazon wishlist. So shout out to Karen for getting me those again. But yeah, if you want to hear my thoughts on those, check out the second part of my A to Z reading challenge vlog. Then next we've got another 4, which are also just books that I acquired because they are part of my A to Z reading challenge. So the first one, my dad actually bought me this, so shout out to Dad. Queen of the Tiles by Hannah Alcav, which is the one I'm currently reading Q. So yeah, I'm 88 pages in. I'm not going to share my thoughts just yet because, I don't want to spoil that video when it inevitably comes out. This is a sort of murder mystery-esque set at a Scrabble tournament in Malaysia. And yeah, basically our main character is returning to this Scrabble tournament when the previous year her best friend, who was the Queen of the Tiles, this kind of favourite to win the competition, died suddenly at the competition. And she comes back a year later, still very much grieving the loss of her friend, and things kind of escalate, and we have to wonder, was her friend actually murdered a year ago, and if so, who did it? So very interesting premise, and I will, share my thoughts on this when the time is right. But that's the first one. Then we also have Scythe by Neil Shusterman, which was very kindly bought for me by my viewer called Alan, who got this along with another book I'll talk about in a bit from my Amazon wishlist, so thank you, Alan. But yeah, this is my choice for S. This was recommended to me by my friend Amy for S when I put this challenge together. Yeah, it's the start of a trilogy, I believe, and I don't know too much about it. So let's read the blurb together, shall we? If I don't know much about things, so I can't really explain it to you guys just properly, I'll probably just read the blurb. So, in a perfect world, the only way to die is to be gleaned by a professional scythe. When Citra and Rowan are chosen to be apprentice scythes, they know they have no option but to learn the art of killing. However, the terrifying responsibility of choosing their victims is just the start. Corruption is the order of the day, and Citra and Rowan need to stick together to fight it. Then they are told that one of them will have to glean the other. Da-da-da. So very interesting kind of dystopian novel, I think. Start to a series, we'll see how I feel about it if I'm going to continue with this, but, I've got need to finish cleaning the tiles, then my choice for R, and then I can get to this. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this one out, because this has definitely been kind of on my radar for a while. So we have that one. Then my choice for V, I bought this weekend just gone in Cardiff, Voyage of the Damned by Francis White. This is another one where when it just came out and I saw it in Waterstones and the cover was like, ooh, shiny, I like that. Also, it's the name of a Doctor Who episode, which is probably the main thing that drew me to it. So yeah, basically, from what I can gather, this is a murder mystery set on a ship. And we'll just leave it at that, because I'm intrigued. But yeah, I bought this at Waterstones along with a couple of other things that I'll talk to you about in a minute. This weekend just gone in Cardiff. And the woman at the till when I bought this said she loved this. So that's got me very, very excited to check this out. And then finally, for A to Z Reading Challenge hauls, I've got nearly all the books that I need to, finish this challenge off now, which is fun. This is my choice for W, and it is Wicked by Gregory Maguire. So yeah, this is the book that the musical was based off, and, the smash hit movie last year was based off the musical. So this is where it all kind of began. So there's obviously a lot more to the story here. I think this is the start of a series as well. And I know, this is quite adult, I would say. And I know there's a lot of key differences in things that happen in this one. So I'm excited to see how I feel about reading this, where it all came from. I don't normally like tie-in covers. I don't normally like getting the versions of books that have like their movie adaptation posters on them. But I will make the exception for Wicked, because that film was fucking great. So yeah, I'm very excited to get to that one, but obviously that is a long way off. And I feel like I don't really need to explain the plot to Wicked to you. So we'll just leave it at that. So we have that one to look forward to in the future. So, a few spoilers there for my A to Z Reading Challenge picks, for those of you who are interested in those videos. So yeah, that's those four. And then my next set of books to talk about are ones that my friend Connor gave me when I was visiting him in Cardiff this weekend. He just messages me every now and again saying, do you want this? And I'll be like, yes. So I had a massive pile of books from him this time around to add to my ever-growing TBR of God knows how many books at this point. To start off with, there are 6 James Bond books, so we can just power through these. I'm sure you're aware of James Bond and his whole deal. So yeah, I've never read any James Bond books, so I've been excited to get into some Ian Fleming and see what the original James Bond books are like, because it's just something that I've loved watching as a franchise, but I've never actually read the source material. So this will be very exciting. When I do get round to these, I'll read them probably in publication order, and we'll go from there. I don't know what the publication order is now, so I'm just going to talk you through them on the order that I've just piled them up together. So we have From Russia with Love, we have Live and Let Die, we have Casino Royale, we have Diamonds Are Forever, we have Thunderball, and we have On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So there's that. So 6 James Bonds to crack into when the time is right. It's probably going to be a while before I get to these, because there's just more things that I'm a bit more interested in on my TBR right now. But it's nice to know that I kind of have these to fall back on. You know, this feels like maybe a good... I'll take one of these on holiday or something, if I ever go on holiday again. Who knows? Times are hard. But yeah, this feels like it could be a good holiday read to take like a James Bond book with me. So we'll check those out. So that's those. Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. Obviously the sequel to Ready Player 1. I read the book of Ready Player 1 when I watched the film. The film came out, I really, really loved it, so I read the book and I enjoyed that from what I remember. It was so long ago, I can't necessarily remember my exact thoughts, but I've never read the sequel, so I'm looking forward to getting around to this at some point. Then we also have The Tattooist of Auschwitz, which I believe got a TV adaptation recently. I feel like I do remember seeing that advertised. And yeah, this is probably going to be quite a heavy read. You know, I think I'm going to have to wait until I'm sort of in the mood to feel very sad and depressed about, you know, some absolute atrocities that we as a human race have committed in the past. So yeah, Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. I'll get around to this eventually. You know, you have to be in the right headspace for something like this, but I am interested in reading this at some point. Agatha Christie, Death on the Nile. I think this is another tie-in cover to one of the Kenneth Branagh adaptations. So again, you know, it's a classic Agatha Christie Poirot novel. I think it has had many adaptations over the years. And yet, I talked about, I think, Third Girl in my last video, because I got rid of that book as quickly as I read it, because I did not have a good time with Third Girl, but this is obviously one of the more iconic and earlier Poirot novels, so I think therefore it's just better written. And yeah, this one seems to have stood the test of time in people's favour, so I am looking forward to hopefully reading a good Agatha Christie this time around, so we'll get to that when we get to it. And then these two just intrigued me when Connor sent me the back of the book so I could read the blurbs. I'd never heard of either of them, but I just thought they sounded intriguing, so these are another two that I'll just get round to when the moment is right. But the first one is The Watchers by Neil Spring. So this one is set in Wales by the looks of it. My name is Robert Wilding. Since childhood I have been running from my parents' deaths, but now my memories have returned to haunt me. In the Ministry of Defence Room 800 I met the man who keeps the nation's secrets, who wants me to investigate the sightings at Broadhaven, the ghostly figures, the lights from another world. I know it is my duty to expose the truth behind the happenings, even if it will be dangerous, even though I may not live to tell the tale. I know it is my duty, but still I am afraid. I know the Watchers will be waiting for me there. So I think there were a series of like UFO sightings in Wales in the 1970s, and I think this kind of is based on that and leans into that a bit. Obviously, probably telling a fictional story. But yeah, I'd never heard of this one, but it intrigued me. I thought the cover looked quite interesting, so something to give a go later on down the line. And the last one I got from Connor is also this one, The City of Lost Fortunes by Brian Camp. So yeah, again, another one, the cover just like really stood out to me, and has a long ass blurb, jeez. Post-Katrina New Orleans is a place haunted by its history and by the hurricane's destruction. Street magician Jude Dubuisson is likewise burdened by its past and by the storm, because he has a secret, the magical ability to find lost things, a gift passed down to him by the father he has never known. Jude has been lying low since the storm, which caused so many things to be lost that it played havoc with his magic. But his retirement ends abruptly when the fortune god of New Orleans is murdered, and Jude is drawn back into the world he tried so desperately to leave. A world full of magic, monsters and miracles, a world where he must find out who is responsible for the fortune god's death, uncover the plot that threatens the city's soul, and discover what his talent has always been trying to show him, what it means to be his father's son. Sounds intriguing to me, so I think it's sort of like a dark academia murder mystery sort of deal. I'm looking forward to checking that one out as well. So those were all the ones that I got from Connor recently. And then finally, we are almost done, I promise. There's only another 6 to talk about. Now these ones are kind of like miscellaneous ones, I guess. These are ones that I either bought myself or again had people buy them for me, but were ones that were actively already on my TBR and ones I just wanted to read and were interested in, or special circumstances led to me obtaining them. So we'll start with this other one, because I mentioned this earlier. This is the other book that Alan very kindly got for me from my Amazon wishlist. It is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. This is the start of a new series from her. I think the sequel to this has come out, and I think there's probably going to be a third, maybe beyond that, I don't know. But yeah, this is a new fantasy series from Cassandra Clare, who of course wrote the Shadowhunters novels and is still writing those. And I loved the Shadowhunters novels and still do. So I was very interested in checking out a new series from her. Let's read the blurb together, shall we? Because I haven't actually read this yet. I was just taking it, as gospel. That I was like, I probably like a Cassandra Clare fantasy novel. In the vibrant city-state of Castellane, Kell is an orphan, stolen from his old impoverished life to become Prince Connor Aurelian's body double. As his sword catcher, he and Connor will become as close as brothers, yet Kell lives for one purpose: to die for Connor. Lynn Castor is an Ashkar physician, part of a community ostracised for its rare magical abilities. After a failed assassination attempt pulls her and Kell together, they are drawn into the web of the mysterious Ragpicker King, who rules Castellane's criminal underworld. But as long-kept secrets are uncovered and forbidden attractions blossom, will their discoveries plunge their land into war, and nations into chaos? So I think that sounds interesting. I like the kind of coming together of two characters from different sort of backgrounds, and it seems like they're going to get it on. And yeah, I think it mentions the Ragpicker King. I think that's the name of the second book in this series. So this is the Chronicles of Castellane, Book 1. So yeah, excited to start a new kind of fantasy world from Cassandra Clare, see, what a new world and characters is like from her. But yeah, I don't know when I'll get around to this, but it's definitely kind of near the top of the list. And then next is another book that I'm reading at the same time as Queen of the Tiles, just because the premise intrigued me so much. And I got this and the next one I'll talk about actually, with a voucher that my friends Steph and Chris got me for Easter, so shout out to them for being lovely. And yeah, I got this and the next one from Burt Books, which is an independent local bookshop. It went viral, I think, a couple of years ago, Burt's Books, for some kind of thing it had on display. I can't remember exactly what it was now, but you may have heard of Burt's Books from that. It might sound familiar to you. But yeah, this is When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. So basically, it is set in the 1950s in Wisconsin, and it's kind of like a historical fantasy where there is a so-called mass dragoning where in the 50s, at sort of around the same time, hundreds of thousands of women who were kind of oppressed or abused, mistreated, turned into dragons. And some of them ate their husbands, some of them, caused a bit of destruction, and they all flew away, and who knows where they went. There's rumours that they live in the ocean. They're maybe protecting islands somewhere. They're kind of, ingrained in culture somewhere, ignored somewhere else. The government tries to basically cover this all up and act like this never ever happened. So our main character is Alex, and her aunt is one of the women who turns into a dragon and disappears. And, her cousin, so her aunt's daughter, basically becomes her sister, and she has to pretend like she's always had a sister, and her aunt, she never had an aunt, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the metaphors are not subtle when it comes to, I guess female rage and menstruation. So these might be topics that might put people off. It's not particularly subtle about the turning into a dragon sort of thing. But I just thought it sounded cool to have a bunch of women turn into dragons. The title does what it says on the tin, basically, and I'm enjoying it a lot so far. I'm on page 90. I think having Alex as a protagonist is interesting because she's really, really young, and I don't know if that's going to restrict how much of turning into dragons we're actually going to see, but maybe we're going to spend a lot of time with her and she's going to get older and older as the book progresses. I don't really know, but I'm really liking it so far. It's a very kind of twisted family dynamic that she's got going on. Each chapter is kind of interspersed with bits of textbooks, fictional textbooks written about, the mass dragoning of 1955. So you kind of learn about the world and stuff through those extracts, and then you kind of spend some chapters with Alex and, just see what she's kind of going through. So yeah, really interesting so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this is going, because I really don't know what ultimately is going to happen here. So yeah, interesting. And then the other book I got from Bert's Books was my boy, my man, Ted Chiang, Stories of Your Life and Others. So if you have seen my A to Z reading challenge, the first video I did, you will know in great detail how much I loved Exhalation by Ted Chiang, which is his second collection of short stories. They were just amazing. He writes like sci-fi short stories. They are so beautiful. I love his writing so much. Like, just reading that, he became one of my favourite writers. So many of them made me cry, and I still think about those all the time. And this is his first collection of short stories. The general consensus seems to be that this is even better than Exhalation, this collection. So I'm very, very excited to delve into these at some point. I don't know when yet. I'm thinking of maybe doing a video where I just read a bunch of short story collections. So I kind of want to save it in case I do it for that. But also, I really, really want to read more from Ted Chiang. So we'll see how I feel. But yeah, very excited to have finally bought his first collection, and I will be checking that out with great enthusiasm at some point in the future. And then these next two are ones I also bought in Waterstones in Cardiff this weekend just gone, along with Voyage of the Damned. So this one is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Another one that was kind of recommended to me multiple times over the past year or so. It's about a man called Linus Baker, who is 40 years old. He has a tiny house with a devious cat and his beloved records for company. And at the department in charge of magical youth, he spent many dull years monitoring their orphanages. Then one day, Linus is summoned by extremely upper management and given a highly classified assignment. He must travel to an orphanage where 6 dangerous children reside, including the Antichrist. There, Linus must somehow determine if they could bring on the end of days. But their guardian, charming and enigmatic Arthur Parnassus, will do anything to protect his wards. As Arthur and Linus grow ever closer, Linus must choose between duty and his dreams. Lovely cover, and I've heard really good things about this. I think this might be the start of a series. I don't know if the next one's come out. But yeah, it's like a fantasy sort of romance kind of deal by the sounds of it. It looks like sparks are going to fly between Linus and Arthur. This was already on my TBR, so I thought when I saw it in Waterstones the other day, I was like, you know what, time to buy it. So excited to read that. And then the other thing I bought there, and I've had my eye on for a while, is Babel by R.F. Kuang, or Babel. I think we're supposed to pronounce it Babel. It depends on where you come from, I think, how you pronounce this. I think in the UK it's Babel. And I think it's also set in the UK. It's set in Oxford. But yeah, this is by R.F. Kuang, who wrote Yellowface, which I read last summer and loved. And I also am very interested in reading the Poppy War trilogy from her. That's on my TBR. And just reading Yellowface, I was like, I think if I read more from you, you're going to become one of my favourite authors. I've heard really, really good things about Babel. So yeah, this is a nice brief, swift blurb here. Oxford, 1836, the city of dreaming spires. It is the centre of all knowledge and progress in the world. And at its heart is Babel, Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, the tower from which all the power of the empire flows. Orphaned in Canton and brought to England by a mysterious guardian, Robin Swift thought Babel a paradise, until it became a prison. But can a student stand against an empire? Ooh, exciting. Love the cover. I love the vibes of it. As you can see, it's like one book of the year and all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of praise thrown at Babel when it came out. I think it came out in 2022, I think. But yeah, I've been very excited to read this, as soon as I first heard about it. So I'll see how I feel about this. It's kind of another dark academia with a bit of fantasy. So yeah, I think it's going to probably connect with me quite strongly. We'll see, but very, very excited for that. And then, last but by no means least, the last book we can talk about today that I have hauled is The Dark Friars, which is the first book in the Keepers of the Crossing series by Ryan J. Hamshaw. So yes, this was actually very, very kindly sent to me by Ryan, who wrote it. It came out November last year, I believe. The sequel is out in September this year, like the week after my birthday. So that's worked out quite well. There's a lot of books coming out like near my birthday this year that I'm really interested in. And yeah, having read this now, I'm very excited for the sequel. So yeah, Ryan actually reached out to me. He watched my Buffy reactions and he reached out to me after I posted some book videos prior to now, as you may have been aware of. Shocking. And kind of, said, like, a book came out recently that I wrote, can I send you a copy and you can check it out? So, not sponsored. I wasn't paid to talk about this book, just out of the kindness of his heart. Ryan sent me a copy of the book, wrote a really nice message in there for me as well. And there was a couple of like really cool bookmarks that have like the same art on the cover. And yeah, if you are a Buffy fan and you want something that will scratch that itch, this is definitely the book for you. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. It's definitely, it gives the Buffy vibe for sure, and there's even in his author's note at the end of the book, Ryan kind of thanks the Buffyverse and like cites it as an inspiration, and you can definitely get that from what the main character's sort of going through and how he's introduced to this sort of new, fantasy world that he's kind of flung into. And yeah, the main character is also called Liam, so that is an instant, that's just a 3-star to my rating basically there and then. But yeah, this was a really solid 4-star read for me. I really, really enjoyed this. The characters are really good. I really liked Liam and his 2 best friends. The particular stand-up for me was Tarek, who is Liam's love interest. Like, oh my god. Ugh. So yeah, there's a really interesting sort of hierarchy in this, and a system of power, and like the lore I just really enjoyed learning about. It's just a really, really fun read. Like, I read this in the day. Like, I soared through it. Yeah, huge Buffy vibes. Really interesting kind of lore and backstory, and I'm hoping we learn even more about that, and I'm hoping we really lean into that further in future books, because I was really surprisingly drawn to that. And yeah, I'm excited to see where things go with Liam and Tarek, and some of the other side characters that were kind of introduced and then sort of came back in a big way near the end. I think, it's a very kind of simple plot to just introduce the characters and the world in this, but where things leave off here and like what the mission seems to be for the second book, I'm very, very excited for, and I think it's going to be a really nice installment, because as it was wrapping up I was like, okay, how is this the start of a series? Where's this going to go? It feels like, we're kind of sort of getting there, and I don't know if we need to continue this story. But then things happen at the end, I'm like, oh, I see. Son of a bitch, I'm in. Let's go. So I'm very, very excited for the second one. I love the art, by the way, on this. It's just really fun. And yeah, I would definitely recommend, if you're just like a big sort of Buffy fan, this is a big recommendation for me. It definitely will give you what you want, if that's what you're after in like your fiction, however you consume it. So yeah, this was really, really good, and I'm very glad I enjoyed it as much as I did, because Ryan very kindly sent it to me out of the kindness of his heart, and yeah, so thanks again to Ryan, and yeah, I look forward to the second one in September, so do check this out if you can find it. I think you will have a really good time. Okay, so we've made it, folks. That is everything that I have unhauled and hauled in the last month or so since I did the first video of this sort of ilk. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed me blabbing on about books for 40 minutes. And yeah, when I have enough to say again about book hauls and unhauls, I'll do another one of these. But in the meantime, keep an eye out for the next part of the A to Z reading challenge. It'll probably be a good few weeks yet still. I don't even own my choice for R yet. Let me know your thoughts on any of the books I've talked about, if you have thoughts on them. And I will see you when I see you.